what about restrictions? Should there be any restrictions at all or not? For example, hate speech. Should hate speech be allowed? We don't think so. Inciting violence. Should you be allowed to put out Facebook posts or on Twitter that incite violence? No. Should you be allowed to divide communities as has happened? No. What about personal abuse? And here we are putting a question mark. And that's where I want to look at this question of limits of freedom of speech. Joining me now, Chetan Bhagat, writer and someone who has celebrated this verdict also today, and also Aryama Sundaram, senior lawyer at the Supreme Court. I just want to get a legal perspective first from you, Aryama Sundaram. Your sense, has today the Supreme Court reaffirmed that freedom of speech is paramount, that you cannot constrain freedom of speech, be it on social media or be it on the internet?
Absolutely. Where is the doubt, Rajdeep? The Supreme Court of India has consistently over the years upheld the right to freedom of speech, because after all, the freedom of speech is quintessential. It is the absolute essence of a democracy. If you take away freedom of speech, you've taken away democracy, and that is a very basic structure of the Constitution. And I am so glad that today's judgment was quite clear and quite strong and used very strong language, saying very, very clearly that no attempt to encroach on freedom of speech would be tolerated. That is the message the Supreme Court has given out completely. That an encroachment on freedom of speech, unless it is backed by one of the restrictions which is already provided for in Article 19(2) of the Constitution, which allows a restriction on freedom of speech only in very rare situations as enunciated in that provision. Any other attempt to curb freedom of speech will not be tolerated, and that is the message I think that has come through from the court, and I think that is a reaffirmation, a reiteration of democracy.
Can I take that to Chetan Bhagat? Because Chetan Bhagat, there is a concern that some express. I put out 4 items: hate speech, dividing communities, which I believe should not, inciting violence, and I also put out personal abuse. Do you believe, for example, personal abuse should be freely allowed on the internet, should be freely allowed on the social media, and to that extent, Section 66A was in a way, was it in any way curbing your right to abuse someone on the net?
Well, Rajdeep, you and I have been both victims of abuse, and we probably are getting abused right now as we speak. It's obviously not nice to receive abuse, and it does offend and it does hurt. But you know, because what Sundaram sir just said, in a democracy, free speech is paramount, and you have to maintain that. I mean, that's the essence, because otherwise you don't know where the limit is going to be set. So I think it's okay. I mean, not everything that hurts people needs to have a legal remedy. Like a girlfriend breaks up with a boyfriend, or a boyfriend breaks up with a girlfriend, it hurts. But does that mean you can go and get that person arrested? No.
No. So is it the arrest? Is it the manner? Is it the manner in which
section? You can't have a legal remedy for it. And same way, abuse is painful. There is no denying it.
Is it the manner in which Section 66A
it's the legal remedy. I mean, there cannot be a legal remedy. It doesn't mean that it's heroic to it. Yeah, because anything you do, the moment you say that I have been abused, then who decides whether it's abuse or not? Is it the victim? Is it the perpetrator? Is it some neutral party? Is it the government in power? And it creates, there is nobody who can do that. Plus the internet anyway cannot be monitored. So I think, but of course, you know, if I tell you, let's go, Rajdeep, you really need to go and kill this person. I think you, and if I tell you that and I instigate you to actually do something like that, that is a crime. I mean, you can instigate, you can conspire, and those words are wrong. But in general, your opinions in general, where there is no intent to really cause like harm, physical harm to anyone, it may be a wrong opinion, it may be a abuse of your free speech right, and it may be ill-mannered to say.
Chetan, I just want to interrupt you for a moment, because I'm told General V.K. Singh, who has found himself in a spot of bother over his tweeting, ironically on social media, is just responding to that controversy. I just want to just listen in and then return to my focus on this on internet freedom.
A loyal member of the party and the present government and would not have joined otherwise. Therefore, there should be no doubt how I stand on the government policies. Attending the Pakistan Day celebrations at the Pakistan High Commission in Delhi is one such protocol that every Minister of State of External Affairs of the Union Government of India has followed in the past and will continue to do so in future. There was nothing new in it, including attendance by separatists who have been there year after year. This was made out as a nationalistic event, while there was no difference from previous years. The only difference this time was of optics, as a previous Chief of Army Staff was being seen, though people forgot that he was a Minister of State in the present government. After I came out, I saw the uncalled for media lashing and questioning my nationalistic credentials. Some even went as far as to claim that the attendance has lowered the morale in the army. As ex-Chief of Army Staff, I know my men better. Even though my party and government understood the issue, the media kept on hyperventilating. My tweets on duty and disgust, which came under lot of scrutiny and misinterpretation over the past 24 hours, has left me perplexed and shocked. I was shocked at the way certain sections of the media attacked my Prime Minister, my government and me for making these statements. Given that a controversy has erupted around this issue, I feel that it is important for me to clarify that my tweets were directed only towards those sections of the media that have questioned the intent of my government and also the stance on countering Pakistan-sponsored terror. I feel that it is also important for me to clarify that I am fully committed to my party and government, especially my Prime Minister. My tweet on definition of duty was clearly to tell all as to what it implies to a soldier and to a disciplined party. I stand in unison with my party in working for a better India. As I always say, nation comes first, always and every time. Well, I'll convert it into Hindi. जब मई 2014 में मैं मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट विदेश मंत्रालय में बना था, तो मुझे अपने दायित्वों और काम के बारे में पूरी जानकारी थी. याद रखिए कि मैं एक सैनिक भी हूं जिसने 13 लाख फौज की कमांड की है, और इस कारण बहुत सी ऐसी चीजों के बारे.
Okay, there was General VK Singh making it clear, trying to sort of engage in damage limitation over his tweets that have given the impression that he was challenging the government's decision to send him to the Pakistan National Day celebrations. He is saying that he will not resign and that he was directing his ire against the media when he used words like duty and disgust. I just want to return to the issue that we were discussing with Chetan Bhagat and Aryama Sundaram. Aryama Sundaram, it appears that being on Twitter is dangerous, hazardous for a minister. And as you're seeing there, you've had General VK Singh has paid a price for that. Which brings me to the question. When you look at the social media and the internet, should the rules for freedom be very different? For what constitutes free speech on the net be very different from what they are, let's say, in a newspaper or what they are even on television?
Rajdeep, let's understand one thing. Because the speed and the reach and the manner in which the social media does travel in itself, there is a fundamental difference between the social media and the other media. including your newspapers and everything else. And I think to that extent, even the Supreme Court in the judgment has recognized that the social media does stand on a different footing, and you can't say that they're one and the same, and there is a reasonable difference between, or a rational differential between the two. Having said that, the tests don't change. The tests remain the same. Article 19(2) permits interference with freedom of speech only in certain express situations and none other. There are no exceptions. If you do not fall within the restrictions contemplated in Article 19(2), no state, no government, no human being, no individual, nobody can in any way interfere with your freedom of speech. Let me just complete one thing. It was very interesting, your earlier question about being abusive, etc. Please remember one thing. There are laws. There are laws which deal with defamation. There are other laws which deal with inciting communal hatred. There are various other laws. Now, without a doubt, if a person is going to defame somebody, defaming them will have to meet the tests of defamation, as found both in the Indian Penal Code and found otherwise in the law of torts. Now, it has to live up to that level of defamation, not merely that Mr. X feels displeased by the fact that he has been criticized, or that he considers something an abuse. That becomes too subjective and can never be a test. The real test is it really defamatory with an intent to defame? If it is so, a restriction can be brought into that as provided in the Constitution itself. But let's be very clear, whichever the form of media, the restrictions can be only as found in the Constitution, Article 19(2), and that is what the Supreme Court has said.
Let me then come to you, Chetan Bhagat, in conclusion, because there are those who will say, yes, free speech is fine, but if there are limits, who is to draw those limits? Who will draw that line? Who will tell me that what I have done is violative? Now that Section 66A is struck down, the police can't do it, the government cannot do it. Then who should do it? The original act was ambiguous, used words like offensive, but now that we are under reasonable restrictions as defined by Article 19(1)(a), who should tell me? Who is that person who should tell me whether I have crossed the line?
Yeah, I think it's never going to be an easy answer for this one. And I think in some cases, like, you know, there are laws, you cannot say anything derogatory against certain SC/ST communities, you know, even in Northeast sometimes. And I think they are to prevent racism and things like that. But they have to be very specific and very well laid out, and not really so subjective. You know, it has to be a clear case where the intent is proven, or the people of need to know that this cannot be, you know, this is something which really is not right. But in general, when you leave it very vague as Section 66A was, it really causes fear and nothing else. And who will decide is the billion-dollar question. I mean, we don't know. We don't really have a way in today's day to. So we just don't know. It is a case-by-case basis. At the end of the day, this is a case-by-case analysis. There is no one answer possible on this.
Okay. Chetan Bhagat, Aryama Sundaram, appreciate your joining us here on the news today at 9 to give us your perspective. Where do I stand? My take. The UPA government messed up on drafting Section 66A, and now the Supreme Court has had to clean up the mess. Free speech cannot be constrained before to the Supreme Court.